Typically, project closeout starts way too late in the process.
We believe in our company the project closeout should start as the job is beginning. And that means understanding how you're going to close out the job. If you're talking about something like LEED, you need to be ready to close out the job when you start it, because you need to know how you're actually going to get that certification. And you have to know the path to the end.
Many schedules don't even address the closeout, commissioning, the final testing of the building. Some projects, it take months to do that. And it's it's a very good idea to identify very early on exactly, once the actual building is substantially complete from a nuts and bolts point of view, what does it take to put all the systems online? What does it take to close out the project, not only with the contractor's team, but with the owner's team?
Prior to awarding subcontractors, certain procedures need to be implemented so the subcontractors who come on board know what you want as far as closing out the project. Oftentimes it's tough, it's at the beginning of the job, people don't want to hear about it, but if you take care of that issue early on, project closeout will happen a lot quicker, projects will end a lot smoother, owners will be a lot happier, and that will result in future projects.
This is sort of a bothersome thing to me, because it's like 2/3 of the way through the job, or the timing of the job, or even 75%, then they start to think about project closeout. And that really bothers me.
Good closeout starts when you're starting the building, not finishing the building. And so as a good project manager, one of the things you need to do is identify what are those activities that are created during closeout and finish those as you move along through the project.
Project closeout should start day one. Some of the requirements of the closeout are going to include things like shop drawings, approved shop drawings, catalog cuts of materials to be used. You need to start that from day one. Don't wait till a month before the job's finished, or even the job's finished, and start trying to accumulate these things.
As-built drawings, to me, are more than just marked up under slab-on grade piping and electrical drawings. They can be the structural steel shop drawings that were approved, because although they're submitted for approval, and of course they're after fabrication, delivery, and erection, those shop drawings can be stamped with a stamp that says as-built drawings, because those structural steel approved drawings are what's installed into that structure. And they can be most helpful when you're doing renovation work 10 or 15 years later, to find out what size of column or what size of beam that's embedded either above the ceiling or in the column enclosure. Coordinated shop drawings of ductwork and overlaid with piping and electrical trays and so on. All of those are as-built drawings. So as they're being produced for shop drawing purposes, it's wise to make another copy of them and put them in the file that says shop drawings, or rather, as-built drawings.
We look at starting closeout in the design phase. We actually try to push our individuals to start looking at, in the design phase, and as you're buying the project out, setting up your packages for closeout and pushing them through from the day one, and making sure that the subcontractors understand what you're going to require from closeout up front, and start pushing them to get any of those items done as quick as they can and turned into us as quick as they can.
My pet peeve would be operating instruction manuals. And to give you the example that I quoted many times, that is that when you start to receive deliveries of equipment and material at the job site, like maybe pumps or boilers or air conditioning units or electrical gear or door frames or hardware or whatever, all of these things, when they're delivered, when you open up the boxes or bust open the crates, you'll find startup or operating instruction manuals. And you'd be surprised how much it costs to get reproductions of those things at the end of the job. But there they are right there for you as the packages and the crates are being opened up.
At the very beginning of the job, you ought to note what's required, and when you get something and it's part of that closeout, it ought to be put in a separate file as a closeout, so that you're not going back scrambling at the end of the job trying to get all these things together.
We get so bogged down with the job itself that, you know, we wait till the last minute, and it's an industry issue that we all struggle with, and we find the projects that we do that on, our closeout period is much longer than if we start pushing it early.
We see this so often, is that project chugs along at maybe 75, 80% and everything is great, and then in the last 15% or 20% of the job, they spend 30% of the money and end up losing part of that gross profit because somebody's lost interest in it. So it should be all part of the process.
And even just getting packages closed out early. You know, if you have a concrete contractor on board early, and if you can get them closed out completely done, paperwork, everything, you know, encourage the owner to get them paid off. So anything you can get done and behind you early saves you at the end.
One of the biggest things with punch lists is the fact that subcontractors don't necessarily want to come back for a punch list. So that if, as a project manager, if you go through, and this is what I attempted to do when I was running project, I would try, when I knew a particular trade was finished, the acoustic ceilings were finished, or the floor was finished, or the painting was finished, I'd walk through and I'd do an individual punch list, not something the architect would generate, and I would hand it to the particular subcontractor or his project manager and say, hey, while you still have guys on the job, while you're not taking a guy out of the normal flow of work, let him finish this. Let him do the corrective action that he needs to do while he's still here on the job.
But I think the other thing that's important to understand from a general contractor standpoint is that the way that you close out that job is going to be what an owner remembers. And we think an awful lot about that last 5% is really, in terms of customer satisfaction, it's 95%.